Hi bakers, Rise Little Bakery is back again for my second video, and you wanted a challenge, so today we're gonna make our own croissant dough from scratch. Croissant dough will take about 24 hours from start to finish, but it's not 24 hours of work. There's very few ingredients: yeast, brown sugar, flour, salt, and milk. And so we're gonna get those together and I'm gonna mix them in a stand mixer. So the first step is to activate the yeast. So that means that we need to give the yeast warmth and we need to give it food. So I have heated up 1.5 cups of whole milk to between 105 and 110 degrees. So I'm just gonna put that right in our mixing bowl. And then we have 1 tablespoon plus 1/4 teaspoon of dry active yeast. This comes in the little pouch of 3 in most grocery stores. So you put that right in, and then the yeast needs to eat, and it feeds off of sugar. So we have 1/4 cup of light brown sugar that we're gonna put right in. And I'll just give it a quick stir. Make sure that it's all mixed together. And we're gonna let that sit and activate for about 5 minutes. So after about 5 minutes, you should be able to tell if your yeast is alive. So what you're gonna be looking for are bubbles and foam at the top. What that shows is that your yeast has been activated, so you're ready to bake with it. Unfortunately, I would say you do need a stand mixer for this just because of the amount of work that needs to happen. I suppose you could do it by hand, but I wouldn't. Next, you're gonna add 3 3/4 cups of flour plus 1 tablespoon of salt to the yeast mixture, and we're gonna mix it on low for 7 minutes. This is a good time to show you what it's gonna be looking like. This is about halfway through the mixing. So you can see that the dough has come together, and it is a rather tough, sticky consistency. And you may think, well, this is all come together, so I'm gonna stop mixing. I don't need the full 7 minutes, but you do. So I would set a timer and make sure that you keep it on for the full time. So after 7 minutes, you're gonna take your dough out of the mixer, and I'm gonna show you what it's supposed to look like. So what we have is a very sticky, stretchy dough, but we are by no means done. So now what we need to do is knead this with our hands for 2 minutes. Something about that final push with your hands, that's gonna give it the texture that you're looking for. So just use enough flour so that it doesn't stick to your hands or to your board, and just knead it. So to knead, I typically push it away with my hand, rotate it, bring it back, and push it with my palm. So I know I've said that we're making croissant dough, but we're not actually making croissants today. But what we're gonna use the croissant dough to make are called morning buns. So these are baked in jumbo muffin tins. They're rolled in brown sugar and cinnamon. They're served warm, they're flaky, they're light, crispy. And I thought it'd be fun to show you something else that you can make with, the same type of dough. I'm sure I'm not kneading correctly, but it's my dough.
This is your method. It doesn't matter what, correct isn't a...
Yeah, the incorrect way.
Yeah.
Would you say it's been 2 minutes? Okay, so after 2 minutes, what you're gonna do is cover this lightly in plastic wrap and chill it for 1 hour. So while the dough rests for the first hour, we're gonna essentially pound 3 sticks of butter into 1 rectangle. So if you're particularly frustrated, this is a good way to get your anger out. So we have 3 sticks of butter on a kitchen towel, and I have another kitchen towel I'm gonna put on top of it. And we're just gonna pound the butter out. So this is cold butter. I just took it out of the fridge. You don't want to use room temperature butter now because as you pound it, it's going to spread, and if it's room temperature at all, it'll just start to melt. And you want this to stay as cold as possible for as long as possible. So take it out of the fridge and get started pounding it. So you may wonder, why are you using your good kitchen towels to pound butter? As you can see here, the towels are absorbing little bits of moisture as the butter kind of becomes more malleable, and that keeps this rectangle that we're forming as cold and as stiff as possible for as long as possible. We are going to form this into an 8x5 rectangle.
The purpose of this step is to create a block of butter that we will introduce into our dough through a process called laminating. Throughout this process, we will turn and fold our dough a total of 4 times. What this does is create many tiny layers of butter and dough. As the morning buns bake, those tiny layers of butter will melt, which will create steam. The steam will rise and try to escape from the dough. This creates the flaky, crispy, airy texture we're looking for. Chill the butter while we work on our first fold.
So after the first hour of resting in the fridge, you can see the dough has already doubled in size. This is exactly what we're looking for. This means we know that the yeast is alive. We're gonna have a delicious dough at the end. Make sure that you're keeping it as floured as it needs to be, but always brushing off the excess. Flour your rolling pin. So we're gonna roll this dough out to a 16 by 10 inch rectangle. Think about the end product, these morning buns that you're making from scratch on your own. You're putting all this work, all this labor, all this love into it, and you're gonna be able to share it with the people that you love. That's why I bake. So you'll see that I'm pulling each of the ends of the rectangle to make sure that you constantly keep it at 90-degree angles. So here we are, 16 by 10, and we're ready to incorporate the butter. So turn the dough so that the shortest side is nearest to you, and we're gonna take our butter that's been in the fridge, and we're gonna put it right in the center of the dough. And then we're gonna fold the bottom third over the butter and the top third over the dough. What we're trying to do at this point is secure the butter inside so that it doesn't escape. This is the last time that we should see any parts of the butter. So there, we have kind of like our makeshift envelope. So we're gonna turn it short side to us one more time, and we're gonna roll this out again to a 15 by 10 inch rectangle. This is our first fold. We're gonna do this and let it chill 4 times. It's important to kind of make these little indentions in the dough and then go through and push it out further. That helps spread the butter evenly so that you don't end up with any sort of pockets where the butter explodes out of the dough.
Now, what kind of friend do you need me to be right now?
Oh, please.
I think the word is indentation.
Shit, what did I say?
Indention?
Okay. One third of the way up. Keep those corners. And then turn the top third down. Flatten it out. This is our first fold. So what we've done is take that one layer of butter and we've folded it amongst the dough so that we create more layers of dough, butter, dough, so that it creates the flakiest morning bun as possible.
You can make an indentation with one finger to signify that this is the first fold, and then wrap it loosely in plastic wrap and chill for 1 hour. Repeat 3 more times. As you start each fold, always begin with the open flap side of your dough on the same side.
Turn 3.
As you roll your dough, ensure there is no butter seeping through the layers. If you see butter, Return to the fridge immediately to re-chill. Once you have your 15 by 10 inch rectangle, fold the bottom third up onto the center of the dough and the top third down to form your letter. Mark with 2, 3, or 4 indentations to signify the fold. Chill for 1 hour in between each fold.
So we're on our 4th and final fold. See, it's very little actual hands-on labor, and it's just a lot of waiting and letting the dough rise in the fridge. So this recipe is actually from one of my favorite chefs, Nancy Silverton. So Nancy is based in Los Angeles and had a bakery called La Brea Bakery, which I first learned about through watching her on Baking with Julia Child. And I became obsessed. And a couple of years ago, I was at a conference in Los Angeles and I was able to go to her restaurant, Osteria Mozza, that was featured on an episode of The Chef's Table on Netflix. My first question to the waiter was, is Chef Nancy working this evening? Because I wanted a picture with her. And he said, oh, I'm sorry, she's not, she's in Italy. And he was like, oh, did you used to work with Nancy? And I panicked and said, yes. And he said, oh, where did you work with her? And I said, I worked with her when she visited New York. And he was just so excited that I came to Los Angeles to see her and was just so apologetic that she wasn't there. And why am I like this?
I'm tagging her in this video.
Absolutely. Nancy, if you're watching this. One time, so Nancy's episode of Baking with Julia Child, she made this creme fraiche custard brioche tart. Everything about it was just...
I mean, from top to bottom, the name.
So I made it for Will's birthday. And the reason that I needed to make this was because Nancy spent the episode making it with Julia. Julia took a bite of it and she was so silent. And Nancy looked shooketh, like there was something wrong. She talks about how she thought she burnt Julia because it was still a hot tart. But Julia was so taken aback by how delicious it was, she started crying. And she said, this is a dessert to cry over. And it was the best thing she had ever tasted. So if that doesn't jumpstart your career, I don't know what will. And I made it for Will for his birthday. And it was just everything you ever could have wanted. But I posted it on Instagram and she liked it.
Oh, what?
Last fold, up a third, down a third. Now, cover it loosely with plastic wrap, and this needs to chill for at least 8 hours. And this is the part where I'll say it can chill overnight and you can resume the baking in the morning. There's no need to time it. If it goes over 8 hours, it's perfectly fine. So this is your last step of the day. Put this in the fridge. Thank it for a great evening. And tomorrow morning, you'll have morning buns. So I just happen to have a dough that's been resting. So in real time, pretend like this is the next morning. Like I said, this is definitely a weekend project. Set yourself up for success. This is a Sunday morning. You've taken your dough out of the fridge. And now you're gonna make morning buns. We have all of those layers of the dough, butter, from the laminating that we did yesterday. The hardest and longest part is over.
Prepare a small bowl of 1 cup dark brown sugar and 2 teaspoons ground cinnamon. Roll your dough to a 17 by 7 inch rectangle. Brush melted butter over the surface of the dough. Then spread the sugar mixture evenly over the surface, leaving 1 inch of dough uncovered at the bottom.
I forgot to brush melted butter over it so this would stick.
Scrape it back into the bowl.
Yep. Nobody said it was perfect. I never claimed to be perfect. The first handful that I put on, I thought, well, that's wrong. And now you can take your rolling pin and just roll over it once or twice to get the sugar to adhere to the dough. So now what we're gonna do is roll it, and then we're gonna cut it. So I like to start from the top and just roll it in kind of a typewriter formation and make sure that it's really tight.
Just watching.
You watched it happen?
I watched the dough and the brown sugar become one, and it was a beautiful union.
Look at that, cross section.
To make 8 equal-sized morning buns, cut your log in half, then cut each piece in half, then cut each piece in half again.
So I have jumbo muffin tins that I've buttered, and we're gonna let the morning buns proof in the muffin tins one final time before they're ready to bake. You take your morning bun and that inch and a half of the bottom that we didn't cover with sugar, we're just gonna pull it and put it over the bottom. The final proofing step involves keeping these morning buns in a makeshift humid environment for 3 hours. And then they're ready to bake, and they bake for 15 to 17 minutes. So this is truly the last big step, and then they're gonna be almost ready to eat. So an apartment, a house usually doesn't have the right humidity to make this happen within 3 hours. It could take a lot longer if I just set these out on the counter. So I'm gonna create my own makeshift humid environment with just a regular plastic bag. So I'm gonna put each of the muffin tins in this bag, tie it shut, and allow them to proof one last time. And you actually want to make sure that you put something on the tin to hold the bag up so that the bag doesn't touch the dough. And to do that, I'm just gonna use a couple of coffee cups.
Allow the tins to sit at room temperature for 3 hours for one final rise.
This is exactly why you need to give these morning buns the time to rise. I'm going to show you how much they've risen in the past 3 hours, and it's all because of our little makeshift humid environment. Oh, look at these! Oh. So they're ready to bake. We started with yeast and hot milk. We added flour, we added butter, and we rolled, and we rolled, and we rolled. And we rolled. So these go into an oven. So these go into a 375-degree oven for 17 to 20 minutes. And remember, we need to keep an eye on them and rotate them if we see that one side is getting more brown than the other. Look at these! Morning buns. So you want to let them cool in the pan for 5-ish minutes until you can touch it. And then I use an offset spatula to help guide them out of the pan. And then we're going to cover the bottom in cinnamon sugar. And in just a little over 24 hours, you can have your own morning buns with your own homemade croissant dough from scratch. Should we try one? Which one looks the best?
Well, this one has the most goop.
Okay.
Look at that tear.
Well,
It's warm and heavy.
Danielle.
Either it doesn't matter.
Oh,
my god.
You got
Cheers.
it. Cheers.
Cheers.
So we've seen a basic vanilla cake, and we've seen homemade morning buns from croissant dough from scratch. So I feel like we're hitting opposite ends of the spectrum. So I hope that you enjoyed learning how simple it was to really make your own croissant dough. And if there's something else that you want to see, whether it's as simple as cupcakes or as advanced as this creme fraiche custard brioche tart, give me a reason to make it again. Let me know in the comments.
Was it worth it?
Totally worth it.
Let me move this in a little closer.
And nope.
Well, do high makers again because I thought you were doing something funny and you can definitely hear me scoff in the background.
Okay. So that means that you need to give the yeast So I've added the yeast mixture. So after the if you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe.
Holy shit, Ryan.
This is the best texture of baked.
Mm-hmm.